For the first Sunday in July, you found the Georgia Gang. Topping our agenda today, Emory University makes a move with great implications. The tax mess in Fulton County is resolved, sort of. We've got court rulings that uphold scholarships, and they're important. Some of the stories up for grabs on the Georgia Gang.
From the Fox 5 studios, the Georgia Gang starts now.
And we're glad you could be with us on this holiday weekend. Happy birthday, America. July 4th coming up on Tuesday. Of course, the state's largest parade in Dunwoody. Hope you'll come out to that. The news this week is news we knew was coming, but now that we've had a chance to sort through the implications, I think it's bigger than I imagined. And Jeff, I'll put it to you. The petition by Emory University and Children's Health Care, and I guess the CDC, to become part of the city of Atlanta is a simple looking thing, but I suspect it's going to be very complex.
No, I think it's going to be very simple. The more complicated components of this have already been done. Trying to find some land, for instance, it's contiguous to the city of Atlanta. Emory University has done that part. I think that they've laid the groundwork both with Atlanta city government and to the extent that they can with DeKalb County, though there are some issues that still remain with DeKalb County. Now the issue goes before the Atlanta City Council. It's virtually perfunctory. They will allow them into the city of Atlanta, and I think that we have to really look at the implications of that. Right? You've got a wildly successful mayor who has served nearly 8 years now and has really brought a lot of business and employment and vitality to the city of Atlanta. And Emory, CDC, and CHOA want to be a part of that. But the real thing that they want, right, is transit.
Right.
And the ability to get on board the transit opportunities that are available through the city of Atlanta and that they cannot take advantage of in any other way.
And you're specifically talking about that Clifton corridor and,
that's exactly
and the possibility of light rail. I think it could be, Dick, a win-win. I would tend to agree. I disagree with the wildly successful mayor who's enmeshed in a city hall scandal, but that's another topic. But I will give credit to Mayor Reed and the city, and I think it's a win-win for both.
Well, Kerry, we got Kerry Ichter sitting in for Alexis today. Thank you for being here, Kerry. This is a net revenue loss for the city. I'm trying to be practical about this. I'm not opposing it. It just seems to me when you bring those three huge institutions into the city, they don't pay taxes. But the city's going to have a tremendous expense in servicing those areas. Police, fire, and let's not forget to mention the hazardous waste, the hazardous materials in the labs at Emory and the CDC, specially trained firefighters by DeKalb. I think this is going to be a tricky one for the city.
Plus, you do have the transit component, and it looks like Atlanta taxpayers are going to be paying for the Clifton corridor because DeKalb has sidestepped picking up a portion of that tax cost because of what happened with its election with respect to increasing the sales tax rates to fund MARTA coming into DeKalb County. So Atlanta taxpayers are going to pick up the bill for this, and it looks like it's going to be a huge expense.
And I'm going to agree with you, Jeff, to this extent on Kasim Reed. Yes, for now, what Phil's talking about is speculative. But for now, Kasim Reed's had one fine mayoralty.
Oh, well, I think
it's not speculative because people have been convicted
whether it gets to him.
Bribery with City
whether
Hall.
it gets to him.
Okay.
Yeah,
we know it touched the mayor.
Yeah, there's a cesspool
There's a scandal going on.
Yeah. But you know, it was William B. Hartsfield as mayor who annexed Buckhead in the so-called Plan of Improvement for the city back in the early 1950s. Can you imagine this city without Buckhead? And someday we won't be able to imagine this city without...
We'll say the same thing here, exactly right. And I don't know that the annexation drive stops there. There may be some communities and exactly right, neighborhoods over in the Druid Hills area that will follow.
Jeff, Kerry makes a good point about MARTA. As we have talked about before, you need the annexation if you're going to get the light rail and if MARTA is going to handle that. That's why it's not been done before.
But let's think about that. If neighborhoods decide to come in with Emory, now that's where the mess begins. because that will affect the DeKalb County schools.
Right.
If the residents follow through on some things that have been discussed, not necessarily finalized, of having their own charter cluster in the City of Atlanta schools, for example, their own high school. Now they're going to have those residents looking down that road are going to have to pay the confiscatory taxes of the City of Atlanta. They're going to have to pay the highest water bills in the Southeast. It's no bargain going into the City of Atlanta.
Well, it's no bargain going into the City of Atlanta because of the rising home values in the City of Atlanta. I mean, they're astronomical. It's not because of the tax base. The mayor has not raised the tax base in 8 years.
Tax rate.
The tax rate.
Tax
That's
base
exactly
has
right.
gone up.
Tax base has gone up, but it's because of housing appreciation
And
in
while-
neighborhoods throughout the city.
And while we're praising Kasim Reed and staying in the city business here, he must have had a good time with the Hawks. Got the new owner in. $192 million project to redo Phillips Arena. And it is different. The renderings are fascinating. I guess they continue to play in it while it's under renovation. I wasn't sure about that.
Yeah.
And it's going to have a Killer Mike barbershop. Probably not my barbershop, huh?
Oh, you can go there.
You can probably
Killer
go.
Mike?
Yeah, use
you
Jeff's
can.
name.
Yeah.
Am I there to watch basketball, or am I there to play top golf?
Yeah, you can do either one or both. But that's not really where this project, that's where this project begins. That's not where this project ends.
Thank
This
you.
project ends in the Railroad Gulch. Now currently owned by Southern, Norfolk Southern, has been for a long time, and it has been eyed by so many different developers for so many different things. You know, people have been wanting to put a casino there and all kinds of stuff. I think now is the time that it's really going to happen. When the city council approved that deal a week or so ago, the mayor said, you just approved a deal that's going to result in billions of dollars in economic activity downtown.
The reason you have the diversity of activities down at Phillips is because, like most Atlantans, I'm not a basketball guy, but when they put a casino down in the Gulch, then I'm going to get jazzed, and I think a lot of people will get jazzed in the Atlanta area.
You know, it's funny, Jeff, you mentioned that. I don't want to sound like Phil says, don't talk about old stuff. But you know, I wrote a Sunday Business exclusive in 1979 about the plans to revitalize the Gulch and build over it.
Right.
Whole Sunday Business front on that in 1979.
1979, a good while ago.
We're still
There was
talking
a lot
about
of plans since then.
Yeah,
We're still
and there were
talking
lots
about-
since.
And the Gulch is still there. And
Right.
it's
Huh?
same condition, the Gulch is still there. Yeah.
Yes, it is. I'm going to change the script here a little bit and get out of this segment so that we can regroup and focus on the Fulton County tax mess, which, believe me, is a cautionary tale for everyone in the state of Georgia. Stay with us.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Visit their website at fox5atlanta.com.
And please don't hesitate to email us. And remember us on Facebook, Georgia Gang. The Fulton County Commission made it official this week that they will retain the 2016 property tax assessment values in the county. I want to throw in a cautionary note. That has to be approved by the state. People seem to be forgetting this. And it's something that happens in late July. I think the state might just say to Fulton County, you can't do that. If your values are thus and so, then you got to assess at thus and so.
Well, you had mentioned that last week, and I'm getting no indication from the Revenue Department that they're moving in that direction. In fact, you know, Lynn Riley, the Revenue Commissioner, used to be a Fulton County Commissioner, and she understands the pain and the shock that has occurred. I think, as we've discussed before, I think you're going to see several things, and you're going to see perhaps a phase-in for next year, and then you're going to have to see, and I know you're going to talk about this, Dick, but Senator John Albers is working on legislation, which I think is badly needed. We've got to have the legislature step
Well, let's
up.
talk about that. And we get into the legal area, so I'm glad Carrie's here. What's happened here, from what I can tell, is this sudden and recurring tax revolt is occurring again in North Fulton County. I noticed school board member Katie Reeves suggested a 3% cap on the property tax growth each year. DeKalb has a freeze on property tax increases. John Albers, as Phil mentions, state senator, convened a meeting Friday looking to get this, remove seniors, not sophomores and freshmen, seniors, from paying school taxes. That could be huge.
Like other counties in Metro Atlanta.
Well, exactly. And where do I sign up for that? So I think, Carrie, that there's the the confusion at the tax office, the overassessments, the shock values are leading to something greater.
Well, I think that's true, and ultimately, I don't see the state legislature getting in the way of doing this, because that would be a politically unwise move, I suspect. But when all is said and done, the idea of exempting seniors from the school taxes, I think that's I hope to be a senior one day.
Yeah.
And that would inure to my benefit. But a little while back, I read a book by former Commerce Secretary Pete Peterson called Running on Empty, that says that the government spends 8 times as much on seniors as it does on children. Probably has something to do with the fact that children don't vote. But when all is said and done, exempting seniors from paying for the education of kids, I think sends the wrong message.
And Dick, there's also...
Wait, they've already educated their kids. They've paid their share. Now they're on fixed income, and their assessments on their home continue to go. They can be priced right out of their house because of school taxes that you could argue they've already paid throughout their lifetime.
Well, you couldn't argue that. I just wanted to shift back a minute to the mess in Fulton County's assessor's office. Now, I would say to your point, Carrie, that when the heat is on legislators, they can do anything. 4 weeks ago, we were told, oh, the Fulton County Commission isn't going to reverse that. Well, they did, because the people spoke. But there are data problems and the failure of collecting the proper data in at least 90 neighborhoods that have been identified. So there needs to be some internal corrections.
Can I ask you, did you get whacked?
I did. Yeah.
You got whacked?
Yeah.
DeKalb is a fine time to live in DeKalb, Jeff. We don't have this mess.
There's an easy mechanism here. It's called the millage rate.
Yeah.
You know, and so...
Well, I'm glad you're bringing that up.
If you have these kinds of assessments that are causing pain for folks, lower the millage rate.
Thank you.
Yes.
And that
it's
will
a
probably
simple
be,
thing.
that could be coming up. You talk about a fix. I think that could be coming up.
Well, you know, Jesus walked on water. And this week, the DeKalb County School Board rolled back its millage rate. I didn't think I'd ever live long enough to see that. And staying in DeKalb for a minute, as they continue to clean up the swamp over there, so to speak, Stan Watson, former commissioner, indicted to death. Kind of looks like chump change. He put in $3,000 worth of cash advances to travel, and didn't travel, and didn't pay back the money in a timely manner, allegedly. But he's got a good lawyer, Phil.
Yeah, why? Did you see the headline, Jeff? Does the name Robert James ring a bell with you, his lawyer?
It does. I understand he's now a criminal defense attorney.
That's right, and obviously the former DA of DeKalb County.
So while Stan Watson was borrowing or stealing the money, Robert James was the DA overseeing.
He was going to fight corruption as DA. Do you remember that?
I do remember that.
Yes.
Just for point of clarification, he paid the money back. I think it was a year later, but that there is
he missed the statute date.
He missed the statute date.
It's a little bit of overkill for what they're dealing with.
Carrie, they prosecute kids for stealing a 98-cent Bic pen. So, you know.
And I would look for a quick...
I don't think so.
No. I would look for a quick plea on this one.
I don't think they indict for misdemeanors.
These stories aren't sexy, but there were 2 big ones this week, folks. And Kerry, being a good attorney, is going to help me out with all this. But the Supreme Court of Georgia held the Georgia Gold Scholarships constitutional. That is, in many cases, it appears to be state aid going to religious schools. The state of Georgia, not so proudly, has a terrible anti-Catholic statute on the books. They're called Blaine Amendments. They're nothing but prejudice against Catholics. And the court, Kerry, it looks to me, got around the Blaine Amendment in Georgia's case by saying this isn't taxpayer money because it's a tax credit. It doesn't come directly from the government.
Well, the name of the case is Gaddy versus the Georgia Department of Revenue, and it was 4 taxpayers who sued as a consequence of what is called the Georgia Education Qualified Tax Credit Act, which is a law that allows taxpayers to contribute to scholarship organizations and have a dollar-for-dollar tax credit when they make those contributions. And what the Supreme Court held, first of all, there were 2 challenges. There was a gratuity Clause challenge and Establishment Clause challenge, and the court held that these taxpayers had no standing to raise these issues at all because they had no particular injury to them, so they could not complain.
Because it wasn't their money.
Right. And as far as giving money away and giving to religious affiliated institutions, they said they didn't give away anything because the money never came in. Since the money never came in, you can't give it away.
Now, in a companion case before the U.S. Supreme Court, and again, Donald Trump's tweets overwhelm so much of what's important in his administration, but in the U.S. Supreme Court, the court ruled unanimously that state funds for specific programs can go to religious schools. Missouri, where the case took place, has a Blaine Amendment, an anti-Catholic statute. In this case, it hit a Lutheran school. I don't think that's what they intended. The Supreme Court said, no, that's fine.
It was a huge win for religious liberty.
It is a monster win for religious liberty. And I really haven't heard the president tweet about that.
Well, actually, he has spoken out about that, and I think that other states are going to be looking at this court ruling.
Well, Betsy Voss has come out about it and said it appears to be a right move in the correct direction because these Blaine amendments have been used historically to challenge voucher statutes.
Right, that's Trump's education secretary.
Correct. And so this is a step in the right direction to remove that arrow out of the quiver of those who oppose vouchers. And anything that helps education, I say a secular hallelujah.
Well, that's right. This is
a
huge editorial in the Wall Street Journal, Dick. A huge win, like you're saying, for school choice.
Okay, when we come back from the almost philosophical segment that we just had to pure politics, which we do very well, and we'll tell you about the governor's race on both sides when we return.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Visit their website at fox5atlanta.com.
You could say we're getting ahead of ourselves here because we're talking about the governor's race, which really doesn't take place until 2018. We do have the mayor's race, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But I thought it was significant this week that former Governor Roy Barnes, who is, I would say, is the ultimate establishment Democrat in this state, endorsed Stacey Evans, the state rep from Cobb County, over Stacey
Abrams.
I'm going to do this for a year, getting them mixed up. Over Stacey Abrams, the House Minority Leader. Jeff, I think it portends a fight over the direction of the Democratic Party. Does it try to be a big tent coalition of whites and blacks, or does it just go out after aggrieved minorities and hope that the demographics changing in the state get them elected?
Anybody who would make that kind of distinction, especially in the case of Stacey Abrams, who I think, at least in the state, is seen as sort of a big tent Democrat, as well as Stacey Evans. I think that the governor...
She's kind of writing off whites.
I think that the governor... I'm sorry?
She's kind of writing off white voters.
You mean Abrams?
Stacey Abrams is.
No, I don't think so. I don't think that she could mount a successful campaign by doing that. It's not her style, and it's not her politics.
Although, Jeff, she took a poke at Roy Barnes, to Dick's point. She took a poke at Roy Barnes, saying, well, it's not 1998 when you won, where you don't have the whites. And so she said, I'm putting together minorities. So, you know, it was pretty blatant. I thought it was a distinction between Stacey Evans, who I believe is going to the big tent and trying to appeal to, say, independent whites.
But look what happens here, Jeff. I think I'm trying to be practical. Can Stacey Evans, if she were to be the nominee, really get black voters enthusiastic to come out of the numbers that are needed to win?
I think that you could ask the same question about Stacey Abrams.
Well, no, I think
no. I think you could ask the same question about Stacey
right.
Abrams. Yeah, and it's a tough call for either one of them. I think that the governor made a decision not based on race, but who he thinks can win the nomination and be the next governor, and who is the best person to do so.
All right, on the Republican
side,
Governor Barnes.
On the Republican side, Hunter Hill surprised a few people, I think, a state senator from Buckhead and Cobb County. He's raised $1 million for his campaign for governor at the latest reporting deadline. That makes him, right off the bat, a credible candidate, wouldn't you think?
Well, yes. Anyone with a big war chest is credible. We saw that in the recent Handel-Ossoff race with those giant war chest. People had worried about Hunter Hill. He's my state senator. I like him. Brian Kemp is going to have to show fundraising prowess. The Secretary of State who wants to get in, and the presumed front runner, of course, on the GOP side is Lieutenant Governor Casey Cagle, who seems to be everywhere, going around the state and showing the flag and promoting his vision. So, and then you have some other candidates coming in, Michael Williams, who we've talked about. So in both party primaries, you're going to have the fur flying as we get into 2018.
Now, let's get back to the City of Atlanta mayor's race, because it does come before the governor's race. I was struck by something this week. Once the 6th district was over and the commercials had stopped, and my email was reduced by about 30%, by the way.
And your snail mail.
And my snail mail.
Yeah.
And I was reading up on Vincent Fort's campaign, the state senator from Atlanta. He's got every leftist group in the world, it looks like, endorsing him. It's very impressive. And, you know, he's got organized labor and all those things, but all the other special issue groups, special interest groups, I don't see anybody else in the race who's got that kind of a coalition. Help me here.
Well, Jeff and I have talked about this. There's interesting coalitions with various city council candidates, and we could kind of go down the list. But I would say this: he is a factor because he is kind of the Bernie Sanders of this mayoral race, and he says that himself. And he's running a populist campaign, and he gets the headlines. He knows how to get the headlines. Although I will say, and we can talk about this later, but there are other candidates that are building up a ground game, and you and I have talked a little bit about this on past broadcasts.
I think that they're all out there working really hard. There are a lot of candidates. There are a lot of major candidates, and clearly he is getting a lot of labor support and other support. Whether or not that support extends a little further into mainstream politics in Atlanta is the big question.
Hey, Phil, for you, I know you've toiled in the vineyards of immigration for a long time. The House of Representatives, the U.S. Congress, on Thursday, remarkably passed 2 of the bills that were key to President Trump's agenda. One, Doug Collins of Gainesville led, and that was the move to cut off funds to so-called sanctuary cities for not cooperating with federal immigration authorities. And the other, Kate's Law, which we've talked about, that says you basically can't be deported and come back in the country and kill somebody and think you're going to be treated.
You'll get extra years. Those are big wins, not just for the Trump agenda, but for our national security and for trying to cut back on the criminal gangs, which I think Attorney General Jeff Sessions is really focusing on. A lot of those, unfortunately, are illegal aliens. I think you'll see action, especially on Kate's Law in the Senate, and I hope on sanctuary cities, because they just can't be tolerated.
You know,
and you know, every Democrat of the Georgia legislative delegation voted no on the sanctuary cities. This is why Donald Trump won last November 8th. Why?
Common sense.
Yeah, don't you want to protect people first? Why would you want a sanctuary for anybody, especially criminal aliens?
Isn't just Georgia's Democrats. One of those bills, which is just straight common sense, passed only 225 to 198. That's 198 people who have no understanding of what it means to be an American. Do you realize that?
It's sad to see these votes.
All right. When we come back, winners and losers. Stay with us.
Time now for the week's winners and losers.
And we'll go quickly, and don't forget the state's largest 4th of July parade, 9 o'clock Tuesday morning in Dunwoody. Let's go to you, Jeff.
Thank you, Dick. Big news at the Atlanta Housing Authority. Robert Rumley has been unanimously elected to be chairman of the board there, following resignation of Daniel Halpern, who served for 7 years. Mr. Halpern was presented with the Phoenix Award, city's highest award by the city, by the mayor, and we'll continue to do good work. Is he the
Canadian Indian who gets contracts?
We'll continue to do a good bit of work with the Democratic National Committee. He's one of the largest fundraisers for the Democratic National Committee, served on the executive committee, and he's going to continue to be a big force in local and national politics. So my hat is off to both Rob Rumley in his new role and Dan Halpern. They're both winners. And I don't know, I've got a loser. I don't know if you've ever seen folks walking around with a child leash on their toddler. Somebody needs to get one of those for our puerile, petulant president.
Here we go. Carrie.
President Trump is my loser for this week because of his tweeting about Mika Brzezinski, You know, it's great for presidents to be for things and against them and attack those things that they're against on a philosophical basis, but attacking people in the way that he has is beneath the stature and dignity of the presidency. The United States Supreme Court is a winner for what it did with the travel ban on a unanimous, unanimous basis, finding that the Ninth Circuit's mindless decision with respect to the travel ban was an abandonment of the law and an adoption of political expediency.
Phil, talk fast.
Nick Ayers, the winner. He's now Chief of Staff to Vice President Mike Pence. He's a 34-year-old Georgian, got to start with Sonny Perdue.
Yeah, and he's not going to run for governor, which I thought was kind of, at 34, really?
By the way, Victor Hill is my loser. Having chaplains go out into the county and attend funerals on behalf and say, you need to really thank Victor Hill for thinking about you.
You'd think he was an Irish politician. All right, we got to get out. My loser, no, my winner is going to be Donald Trump. Do you know he suggested that the wall along the border have solar panels on it?
Brilliant.
Turned it into a profit-making operation. Brilliant. That's why we need that kind of leadership. See you next week on the Georgia Gang. Happy 4th.
The opinions expressed in this broadcast are those of the panelists appearing in this program.